settle in. Just like to welcome everyone again. Big warm welcome to all those who are joining us today. I'm in from the Philippines, and I'm the community choreographer here at Pollinate Impact. My role and my joy in being part of this network is weaving our community together through convenings like this one, where we share insights, tips, and a good sprinkle of inspiration to strengthen the work of impact incubators, accelerators, and ESOs all around the world. So welcome to our Roots to Results session. This series is all about learning from what's already working and from each other's experiences. Now, we all know that grants and equity have long been the bread and butter for most impact incubators and accelerators in the global south. But we also know how tough it can be to branch out and pilot new revenue streams when resources are tight. So today we're diving into stories from organizations and individuals who tried something different, revenue models that go beyond the usual. So we'll also be bringing in some of the insights from our ongoing research at Pollinate Impact on financial sustainability. So think of this as both a learning space and a bit of a playground for new ideas. So before we jump in, just a quick housekeeping reminder again, if you haven't yet, please rename yourself on Zoom with your name and organization. That way we all know who's in the room and also who to message later, right? For those, hey, let's collaborate chats. So let's do that while we wait for others to come in. So Aditi, once you are ready, if we can please bring up our beautiful slide to introduce Pollinate Impact. Awesome. Great. So just a quick shout out to the members of the network here of Pollinate Impact. If you're not yet a member, this is your sign to join our buzzing community of impact incubators and accelerators from across the global south. Members get funding leads, proposal support, tools and shared resources, and real connection with peers who get the kind of work that we do. So you will see the QR code on your screen, and then the link will also be shared on the comments below. So come join us, and we'd love to have you. So if you'd like to scan the QR code, we'll give some time for you to do that right now. If you're interested. Okay, great. If we can move on to the next slide. Awesome. So if for the members, if Pollinate has helped you even just a little bit, maybe a funding lead landed at the right time, a tool made your life easier, or maybe a conversation reminded you that you're not alone in this wild world of impact work, why not pass it on? You can refer a peer to join the Pollinate Impact Network and get 10% off your next annual membership fee. So again, you can share the link or scan the QR code so that we can keep growing this garden together, one good referral and one new bloom at a time. All right. And if you're wondering what's coming up for us this November here in the network, here are some of our sessions that are coming up. So first, if you see there are some with stars on it, I will start with those. Those are our member-only events. So if you'd like to make it for those, you'll have to apply and become a member to attend these. First, just for those that are maybe new to the network, new members, or just joined a member organization, now's the perfect time to learn how to make the most out of becoming part of the network. We'll walk you through the perks, platforms, and people that make Pollinate Impact special. So join us on November 5 for that new member orientation. For November 6th, the Agriculture Incubation State of Play, Harvesting Innovation and Primary Production, we're digging deeper, pun fully intended, into how agricultural innovation is shaping the future of primary production and how incubators can help in this endeavor. So we hope you can join us for that discussion. On November 13th, we are joined by Youth Business International, or YBI, to share their proven framework for engaging youth entrepreneurs, plus stories from their members who've brought it to life in their own context. So this is a really interesting discussion. I'm excited to listen in on this as well and hope you can join us for that too. On the 14th, we have an in-person mixer in the Philippines called Pollinate Pulse, a green mixer for the Philippine Impact Enabler community. So anybody who's based in the Philippines or are visiting during Philippine Startup Week 2025, let's gather for a night of connection and collaboration. We are supported by the EUPH Green Economy Program, co-implemented by Expertise France and the Department of Trade and Industry, and co-hosted by Spark Project and Make Sense Asia. This is all about bringing our ecosystem full circle, reconnecting, re-energizing, and reimagining how we can work together. On the 19th, we have one on aquaculture and blue economy, a session where we'll explore how incubators are supporting ocean-based enterprises from aquaculture to blue economy ventures and helping build sustainable coastal ecosystems. The last one, the funding flora in dialogue with funders. We're closing the month with an unfiltered conversation featuring GIZ Philippines, GIZ Kenya, and UNSCAP, diving into what funders and ecosystem enablers are really looking for and how we can collaborate better. So again, this is a members only session. So if you haven't joined the network yet, now is the perfect time. All right. Thank you so much again for being here and for bringing your energy into this space. With that, let's get started with our check-in activity. So just to get to know the people in the room, we will send out our Menti code on the chat below, and let me open up our presentation. All right. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. So if you haven't joined yet, on the comments, I think Aditi has shared our Menti link. You can go to menti.com and use the code 57616717. I already know who's pre-filled our Menti. Thanks, Mitra. So we have somebody joining us from Byron Bay in Australia. We'd love to know who else is in the room with us and where you are joining us from today. Somebody from Kenya, welcome. India, welcome, Gayatri. Thank you. Ireland, awesome. We have a good mix today. India, great. Senegal, India. Saji from India, welcome. Manila, Manila represent. Awesome. We have a really good crowd today with different people coming from different parts of the world. If you haven't yet, no pressure. You can still answer and go through the Menti with us. Let me just move on to the next slide for now. Just wanted to check what best describes your organization. Where do you fall? So again, thank you, Mitra, for answering. Incubator accelerator. Let's do our other participants fall. I'm quite assuming that most of the people in the room are going to be within the incubator accelerator organization just because of our topic for today. But of course, everybody else is welcome to join. We just want to know who else is here. So we have a majority of incubators and accelerators in the room. One that is other. If you can please let us know in the chat, whoever answered other, what organization do you belong to, just so that we know. That would be great. Thank you. We have a funder and donor in the room as well. Welcome. Great. All right. In our next question, so this might be more relevant to the incubators and accelerators, but anybody is free to answer. Roughly, how much does each of these revenue streams or strategies in percentages contribute to your annual revenue, right? Doesn't have to be the exact numbers, just maybe off the top of your head. And then also within the Menti, you can see that you can skip some of these in case you don't use these types of streams yet, right? So we just want to know roughly where, how much of these do you use in your, how much of these contribute to your annual revenue in terms of these strategies? We'll give a little bit of time for this one. Guptaji, thank you. And GOCSO, got it. So that's the other. Thanks so much, and thank you for joining us for today. I see it's changing a little bit. We have the top two being grants and CSR funding, and then the rest kind of falling somewhere in the middle for fees charged for incubation, returns from investments, fees, and then rent and co-working spaces, and then government and others being somewhere in the lower end of our percentages. I'm surprised and curious to see that there's more CSR and corporate innovation funding here. It would be great to hear about this later, maybe during the discussion, right? Um, there, I guess now it's kind of equaling the grants for program implementation. Just wanted to see how many people have also experience with the corporate innovation, as one of our speakers for today will also talk a little bit about that. But this is great. Thank you so much, everybody, for answering so far. Again, you can go through the Menti at your own pace later on to answer this as well. But thank you so much for sharing. Okay, for the next one, and I see it's also pre-filled. Thank you for those who've already answered. How many of these revenue streams have stabilized and are now part of your regular operations? It seems that corporate innovation is one. Fees charged also. There's a bit of those. Consulting as well, and then rent, events, and co-working spaces also pretty popular compared to the others. Okay, those two are really standing out. I guess it aligns with the amount also, right? Like most people having these as the majority of their annual revenue coming in. Great. Thank you for that. And then this one, just in case if you want to go back, if you have your Menti on your phones later, you can leave your questions here. If you're a little shy to kind of ask our speakers at the end of the discussion, you can come to Menti and then you can place your questions here as we go along in the discussion. All right, but thank you everybody for filling out the check-in. It's so nice to have everybody here in the room for this discussion, which we're really excited to have for today. And without further ado, maybe we'll start by introducing our speakers for today. And so we will do our usual name, where you come from, your organization, what do you do, a little bit of that, because I know we'll get into that later with Himakshi as well. And then our fun question for today, is there anything that you like to do for fun that, you know, not a lot of people might know, or at first glance, people might not think that you like to do this thing. So maybe just to give an example, for me, for example, I like to do dance classes with like the stepper on it. Like that's what I've been doing for the past few months. So it's been fun and also really good physical activity. So yeah, that's me. I will pass it on to Vijaya to introduce yourself.
Hi, Rod. Hello, everybody. I am Vijaya, uh, reaching out to all of you from Mumbai, India. I am the founder at Social Lens, and I also manage Toolbox India. And fun fact, I recently started pottery classes, and I love getting my hands dirty with all that mud.
Nice. What have you created so far? What has been your masterpiece so far, Vijaya?
Uh, I think I started off with something very simple, just to make a bowl and a plate, which is very misshapen. But I look at it as a work of art.
Oh, definitely. No, that's awesome. Great to hear. Thanks so much, Vijaya. I'll hand it off to Mitra. Introduce himself.
Hi, yeah, I'm Mitra from Natural Innovation, serial social entrepreneur who now focuses on mentoring innovators across South and Southeast Asia, and also run a open source project doing IoT, mostly in regen ag and stuff like that. And for fun things, I like to dance. That's my, you'd never know it looking at me.
Nice. Is there a specific kind of genre that you prefer, Mitra?
Any of the conscious dance genres.
Great.
The dance of the meditation, that kind of thing. And,
Nice.
and I'll try any of them. So.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Mitra. And Joram, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joram Winamo. I'm the CEO of Sandbox. We are based off Nairobi, in Kenya. And yeah, incubator, accelerator, supporting entrepreneurs on their growth journey. We have a unique model where we have service providers internally, which is part of our sustainability model of the different experts who serve the entrepreneurs as well. And yeah, we've managed to scale through partnerships and have an office in the US, UK, and a couple of countries across Africa. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. What's
The
your
fun
fun
thing I
fact?
like to
Yes.
do is I'm a DJ and my name is growing. So I think Mitra and I would have
Wow.
fun when I play the music and he dances.
We need to get this group together for the next Pollinate event in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joram, you should play for the next potluck.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And then to lead our discussion for today and moderate it, we have Himakshi. Himakshi, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Himakshi and I'm a research weaver with Pollinate Impact. I'm from Gurugram, India. So most of the people I saw, they were writing on the Mentimeter that they are also from India. So if anyone is around Gurugram, happy to meet them. And the fun thing that I've been enjoying recently is actually baking. So my mom used to bake these very tasty walnut and date cakes. So I'm learning how to bake those, and be at least close to how she bakes it. So that's one thing about me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great, Himakshi. Well, thank you so much to our speakers and Himakshi for introducing herself. I will now give the floor to Himakshi to start our conversation and our discussion with our three speakers for today. So Himakshi, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Rod, and thank you everyone for joining today. And I will be moderating today's panel discussion. So before we begin with the discussion, I would like to tell a few facts. So as a network who is starting to ask difficult questions around financial sustainability and other topics, the first thing that comes to our mind is diversification of revenue streams by not relying solely on a single source of revenue, and which is the most comfortable one as well. So during one of our literature reviews on this topic, we found out how incubators and accelerators, they've relied on donor fundings and or on grants to sustain themselves, and almost every time they have not fared well during the times of need. So therefore, time and again we have asked our members about the biggest issues that they face, and time and again they have mentioned money to be the biggest challenge for them. And even within money, donor fundings or grants, they make up for the largest portion of the revenue mix of not just our members but also of incubators across the globe, especially the ones in the global south and emerging markets, as we found during our research too. So, the purpose of today's discussion is to explore how impact incubators can actually choose alternative revenue pathways, the structures that have worked, the challenges encountered, and the concrete lessons you can use in your own organizations. So, without further ado, I would like to begin today's discussion by asking our panelists. So, Rod, uh, if you can have the timer set. Okay. So, my first question goes to Vijaya. I would like to, and this goes to all the panelists. I would be asking this question to first Vijaya. So what is your revenue mix at the moment? And what is the single largest revenue stream for your organization today?
Thanks, Hinakshi. Um, I think if I were just to talk in terms of a revenue stream, uh, I would say that we are we are by DNA now a consulting company. So our largest revenue stream comes from the kind of consulting services and support that we provide. But I would actually take a step back because um, we social lens and the consulting structure and model came about because of the inherent challenges we were facing when we were running through the Section 8 not-for-profit organization called Toolbox India. It's been a skills provider, and as a skills provider, we're grant dependent, endowment heavy, supporting a lot of organizations in venture strengthening and sustainability and emerging opportunity to crop up, right? And so we needed to come up with not just a revenue stream but an alternate structure, which is actually became part of the introduction that you made. And that's how social lens came about, to look at monetizing opportunities through service provision, and through that we could continue to sort of build like a hybrid model which would allow Toolbox to do the work which it has traditionally done through pro bono support, uh, relying reducing its dependence on grants and relying on the consulting fee through which Social Lens could support the organization. So that first is a structural element. In terms of a single revenue stream, again, Hinakshi, we're now 10 years old. And in the 10th year, it's taken us 5 years to figure out what is the niche and the unique identity for which Social Lens wants to be known as. Entrepreneurial journeys, consulting journeys start where you say you'll do anything and everything, which can actually also be counterproductive in the long term. Today, I can say that our majority revenue stream in our consulting services comes from the capacity building work we do.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much, Vijaya, for bringing this up. And absolutely, this alternative structure and this hybrid revenue model, business model is something that we want everyone to explore as well. So thank you so much for your response. I would like to ask the same question to Mitra now.
Sure. Probably a bit different from many of the people listening, because as a venture builder, there's a little bit of my income comes from consulting, but most of it comes from returns from investments made as a result of other mentees in the past. But often like a lot of venture builders, I switched from doing this in the more commercial world to doing it in the more impact world. And so a lot of the income is income that came from investments when I was doing this commercially. And a lot of venture builders are very lean, single person organizations like myself. So keep the costs low and live off of previous income.
Okay, and Mitra, would you like to also tell us what is your current revenue mix? Is revenue-based finance and working capital debt, are these two the only sources of revenue for your organization right now?
I say a lot of the revenue comes from the previous work I did. So it's living off of past work. Current revenue, yes, there is revenue from working capital debt. Finding the right balance, because working capital debt is also fairly risky, it's a bit risky still. So RBF not at any significant volume yet. That's a sector that's really just taking off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mitra, for your response. Now I would like to hear what Joram has to say.
Okay, so we've experimented with very many revenue streams, and we actually our model started out on the for-profit side. I think with a lot of consulting and then running charged programs for entrepreneurs, but later built a hybrid model where we have a for-profit and non-profit that run under the same brand. And so if we get grant programs, they go through the non-profit. If the financial commercial revenues go through the for-profit. We've built an interesting model, and I know I'll be talking a lot about corporate engagement, but it's just one of the segments that we deal with. But we have service providers as part of our revenue stream. So the experts that give services to our entrepreneurs using different models, whether programs or just direct consulting, coaching, and training programs. They also pay to be part of our ecosystem. It's a physical space in Nairobi. And so that contributes to some very stable recurrent revenues, because they would have been paying those costs somewhere else, but being in an aggregated space, there's quite a bit that comes in. And then now we seek, to create value for corporate institutions, foundations, and the like through same things that the other people are talking about, except the financial related ones. So we have a pretty diversified revenue streams. I can talk about the mix as we go along. Yeah.
If you could just share like a rough percentage split of these revenue sources that you mentioned, I would like to know which are top 4 or top 5.
So the model around the service providers is about 30%, another 30% from the programs we run, and then 40% from grants. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Joram, for mentioning that. Now, my second question again is for all the speakers. So we would like to know how and when did this become your major revenue stream? For Vijay, it's consulting services. For Mitra, it's RBF, and for Joram, corporate partnerships. So how and when did this become your major revenue stream? If you can tell us briefly about the whole context and stage or age of your organization when you first attempted this.
Is there any order you want us to go in, Hinakshi?
Yeah, Vijay, you go first.
Okay, thank you. So Hinakshi, I think, for any organization in the early years, right? You sort of going to start. You have to start with whatever work is going to come your way. It takes you a while before you kind of figure out your sweet spot or the niche, which I think becomes essential. So I actually divide the 10 years of toolbar of social lens into three phases. The early years, the first 3 years, we didn't know what our sweet spot was. We took on whatever work came, building on the practice of what we had done as capacity building for Toolbox, right? So we brought that knowledge and experience into this. The middle years allowed us to test a lot of things, but it also brought about the biggest disruptor which the world saw, which was COVID, because suddenly the kind of work that went around venture strengthening, venture building, capacity building, impact consulting, all of those got pushed aside because humanitarian need and money had to move into that. So even traditional clients who were looking at us to take on our services went away because there was a complete diversion of that capital. But I think towards the end of 2020, in the last 5 years, which I call the most recent years, have allowed us to consolidate our practice, where we could really strengthen the two primary practice areas. And within those two areas, we started finding um, sort of, I would say, building in new methodologies, new tools. Because in consulting, I think the thing is you have to keep looking at freshness of approach methodologies as you look at a very dynamic environment around which you're working. So I would say for us, it was in the last 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you, Vijaya. And it's actually great to see that, when your organization is maturing, it is also diversifying and growing towards betterment. So thank you, Vijaya. Mitra, I would like to ask the same question to you.
Sure. So I guess about 30 years ago, I started taking a big chunk of income from mentees as shares. So that was taking a bet on the people I was mentoring and consulting to, because it was a mix of consulting and mentoring. As of about 20 something years ago, I started doing more investments in people, especially mentees, and that's accelerated a lot over the last few years. And more recently, and that was mostly equity investments, and more recently, it's been debt, which means larger number of smaller investments. So the earlier investments were fairly large, and I've had 3 wins. So that is the thing with when you're doing investing, if you're doing equity, it's very chunky, unlike debt. So you either tend to lose the whole investment or you make a lot on it, and that's very risky. And I got lucky. I've had 3 wins. Those wins have funded what I'm doing. Now it's smaller wins and with more concern about the impact of who I'm investing in and focusing on that side of it, without so much concern for what the upside is.
Right.
And that's for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing a lot of the debt investing.
So it's good to see how you've come from equity to debt, and now there's a healthy mix, as you mentioned. So thanks Mitra for answering my question. Joram, if we could hear something from you now.
Yeah, I think for us, we intensively started the entrepreneur-facing cohort-based programs with kind of pay-as-you-go model in 2010. the numbers of the cohorts grew, which meant the numbers of entrepreneurs we were working with grew as well. And we kind of saw that if we could optimize that, that could become a stable revenue stream. But as the numbers grew, the corporates started to take notice that these are people who work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so when they had programs targeting small businesses or SMEs, or they wanted to run a corporate innovation program or just an SME focused program internally, like capacity building, like the banks for their SME customers type of thing. So those revenue streams began to open up, I would say around 2015 going on. We consolidated the model into the sandbox model in 2020, but I would say from around 2015 is where like we ran a countrywide program around doing digital marketing training for small businesses with Facebook, and like, you know, those kinds of programs began to become significant revenue streams in our books. And so they all still run, but we try and look at how to optimize and capacitate them in the background just to make sure that the quality remains good and that there's a good balance in between. But that's, like I mentioned, the percentages earlier, that's kind of what it's settled at now. And yeah, just looking to consolidate that and possibly scale the models now since they're working well. Yeah.
Great. So just a quick follow-up, Joram. Was there like an inflection, point of inflection, or a supporting partner who was there when this timeline that you mentioned, it was growing and you were moving towards diversifying your revenue streams? So what was that point of inflection for you?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the digital programs around small businesses was an inflection point because that's a very big brand. And so when we got into that program, you know, from their PR and ours, that created a lot of noise and probably attracted others to see if, you know, this firm can work with this reputable large company. Maybe there's something in it. And so you also go into pitches a bit more confidently with what you've done with other players and the nature of the programs. I think we also kind of began to learn how the SME value chain is structured within corporate, and it's quite big. Like if you look at all the different decision makers and value chains you could tap into, there are people who work with agencies, people who have SME customers they want to capacitate. You have the CSR program. So we began to now learn how the opportunities were structured within the corporates and began to have different conversations with different corporates on how we could optimize that for different programs that they run.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joram, for highlighting this shift. And I think it will lay a good foundation for us, for our audience as well, to understand the timeline that all our three speakers have gone through and how it has helped their organization. So thank you so much, all the three speakers. My next question, again, for Vijaya first. So what is that one single indicator that you monitor inside your revenue stream to ensure that it's working for you in terms of outcomes? So in terms of consulting services, what is that one indicator that you monitor regularly to ensure that it's working?
I don't think I have a conventional sort of a approach here. Okay, and I would say this because I think as a founder, this is the sort of mindset that I have. Um, we've intentionally chosen to stay small and niche. We see ourselves as a boutique organization. So then the metric for me really becomes for the kind of work we do, whether the fee that we are able to generate on the work over a period of time is increasing. I'm not looking at a model where I'm increasing the number of clients and looking at you know, for me, it is incremental value that I deliver to my clients through long term partnerships and the incremental fee that I'm able to generate. So, for me, a singular outcome from a revenue purpose is not that the revenue growth is coming because I'm increasing the number of clients that I'm working. I deepen the work which I do with a pool of clients where over a period of time it takes care of inflationary price points and just all the other sort of things so that you're paid fairly for the work that you're doing. That is now whether that is the right kind of approach for everybody to take. I would actually ask people to tread cautiously, because this is the approach which I have taken. It's not very conventional.
Right, and actually that makes sense as well, because we are all in the social impact sector, and instead of running towards the numbers, we should also run towards the kind of work that we're doing. And it's lovely to see that, Vijaya. So just a follow-up question, you were mentioning about the incremental fee. So how often do you track it? How often do you go back and see that this might be the time that I want to take a look at that fee?
Inflationary pressures are something that are hitting all economies on an annualized basis, right? Everything is going up, right? I operate a office out of Mumbai, which is like prime real estate, right? So I think what we try and do is look at it on an annualized basis. That's how typically inflationary pressures work on enterprise, on your balance sheets. The second thing also is the cost of resources, right? I just read a very interesting article. Just because somebody, working in the social impact development space should not become something that is accorded only those who come from privilege, right? Because if pay parity is not there, commiserate with at least to some element of what for profits are generating, you're not going to be able to get the right kind of talent. And the work today is so exciting, calls for innovation, calls for uh, being very, very, having those bouquet of competencies and skills that allow us to deliver value to clients. And it doesn't matter if the client is a philanthropy capital provider, a social enterprise, or an early ESO. Ultimately, it's all about value delivery. So you have to look at it from an annualized basis, year on year.
Great. Thank you so much for elaborating on that, Vijaya. Now, Mitra, I would like to ask the same question to you.
I would echo Vijaya in saying I don't have a conventional indicator. I think that again I have a founder mentality, and in fact I wouldn't use the term annualized basis. That's far too short a term. Uh, um, I would say that my main indicator is from an impact perspective. Are my mentees succeeding? And from a financial perspective, it will be, are the ones that can do so giving me options or shares, right? Which will turn into value in the future. And on the debt, is the interest sufficient to cover the inevitable defaults?
All right, great. And the same follow-up question goes for you. So if you had to, pick a timeline of how often do you go back to tracking this indicator? So the three indicators that you mentioned. So how often do you do that?
Was that for Mitra or for me?
For Mitra, sorry, that was a
Oh,
follow-up question.
sorry.
Okay.
Look, I mean, these things happen on a very, very long time period, right? When you look at doing equity investments, I talk about having 3 wins over 25 years, right? That's decade-long time periods. There are years when I book 0 revenue. But as a one-person organization, I can afford to do that because the win from the previous year pays for the current year. On the debt, it's just maybe once a year I go and look at what's the aggregate on it. There've been 2 defaults recently, so this year's going to be a bad one. But neither of those defaults were 100%, right? They're all partway through repaying. But up to that point, there hadn't been any defaults, so I was doing quite well. I was well ahead. So it's hard. You can't measure this thing on a short-term basis if you're taking risks on organizations that are themselves risky.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for answering that, Mitra. And hope and wish the best for you. Joram, this question again for you about the key indicator that
Yeah.
you measure. Yeah.
So I would say earlier we would probably be looking at pipeline. More recently, we have been looking at repeat business as a key indicator. Just because in the journey we kind of realize that it's easier to get repeat business, but if you're stuck in delivering projects and you're not staying top of mind of the decision makers in the organizations you're working with and kind of sensing what other needs they might have in other divisions and get introductions and come up with new proposals for new things you could do across the organization, then you kind of end up doing one-off projects and then some silence and maybe it revives. And so more recently we've been trying a model where we try and stay top of mind so that we ensure there is repeat business that's coming through, hopefully bigger, because you've proven yourself the first round in terms of the impact that you're able to have on the organization or the value that you're able to deliver. So it's a lot more difficult than it sounds to keep that balance. But we're increasingly just trying to find models of how we do the check-ins, the lunches with the decision makers, getting a sense of what additional value they might want to create based on what it is that they're doing. Are they satisfied? Is the organization excited about the impact that they're seeing with the programs that they're running? And at the point of satisfaction, then it's easier to slide in suggestions for new things they could do. And also keeping an eye on corporate budgeting cycles, just to ensure that they slot you in for the next year and ensure that the budgets exist for whatever activities you'd carry out. And so kind of gets easier over time to get the year-on-year stuff going when you have that system working better. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Joram, for that answer. And one theme that I heard echoing through all the answers was incremental value, the value delivery, and the kind of value that you're giving to your mentees, to the entrepreneurs. And I think it's really inspiring to see that here as well. So I this is just one last question for all the panelists before we move to the targeted questions for the speakers. So what is the biggest implementation challenge you face for with this particular revenue stream of yours, and one immediate lesson that you can share with other incubators in the field? Vijaya, it would be great if you can go first.
So I think, firstly, Hinakshi, irrespective of how an organization's DNA is, whether you're an incubator or an accelerator, a consulting company, venture builder, I think one of the things we need to acknowledge that it is now a crowded marketplace. Okay, it is just like everything else. This space is also a competitive, crowded marketplace. Um, and so the continuing challenge that I see for at least my organization is how do you stay relevant? I think staying relevant is key, right? Uh, because in this marketplace today, you have extremely large established organizations which also have social impact practices. And they have large teams, much bigger infrastructure. There's a brand name, a lot of things. So the first thing is the crowded marketplace, trying to stay relevant. And maybe when there's a targeted question, just in the interest of time, I'll stop here. Just what are some of the things that one needs to therefore do to sort of stay relevant and unique in a crowded marketplace? Yeah.
Thanks, Vijaya. And just a follow up. There's a second question as well. The immediate lesson that you can share, apart from the challenges that you just shared with us, if you can tell an incubator, all the to the audience, what is one lesson that you would give them if they are trying out this revenue stream?
Well, I think first is to really identify what is it that, what is the unique offering that you want to make, right? Even if it's not unique, what is it in your offering that differentiates you from many others? Why should somebody come to you? I think the day you're able to answer that for yourself will allow you then to sort of define what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then later come the price points and all of it. But you always have to look at what is it that differentiates me from the other. Is what I'm offering that very unique? Because I believe today everybody is doing good work. Everybody, if you think you have a good idea, somebody's actually already thought of it. So it's not about a flashbulb idea, but what you're doing, which you're doing differently, which allows you to stand out. That's my learning.
Right, right. It's like how you stand out from the crowd. That's what matters here. How you presenting yourself uniquely.
I think it's a little bit more deeper than that, Hinakshi. I think it is just in your approach. Look, if I were to talk about a framework or a methodology, right? They're all out there. We live in a world today where knowledge is no longer a commodity. It's available for everybody. What stands out is what you do with it and how you approach in the delivery of that.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Vijaya, for answering that. Mitra, I would like to ask the same question to you about the challenges and lessons.
Yeah, a couple of. I mean, I would suggest that one of them is that the companies that are likely to achieve the most impact are not necessarily the ones that are most likely to be able to deliver you some return on investment. And finding the right balance between a mix of ones that can actually be financially rewarding and those that can be impactful is a challenge. And I think in a sense, building on what Vijay has just said, yes, it's a crowded marketplace. And one of the challenge when working with mentees is they're getting pitched by a lot of companies whose I would say their methodology is to overpromise and underdeliver. Right. So a lot of the commercial incubators out there pitch to impact companies. They offer they promise them the world when I know from talking to their previous mentees that they're actually not going to get it. And then they want quite a big chunk of the company in the process, whether or not they deliver. And so I watching mentees getting sucked into sales pitches, which I know are going to leave them in an uninvestable state. Is very hard when you're trying to be ethical in the space, but other people are like over marketing themselves. Not naming names, but it's not any Pollinate members. It's the commercial incubators pretending they can do impact and doing a really crap job at it.
Right. And what would be the lessons that you can give to incubators who are trying out revenue-based finance for the first time?
For revenue-based finance, it's really you've got to be like as an incubator, you try and work with companies that are not perfect, right? Because you're trying to turn them into a good company, right? So, I went through a session today with an incubator I was helping, and we were looking at a company which clearly was not going to raise the money that they were looking for, right? That's okay because they're in an incubator, right? You're trying to get them there. That they may or may not succeed, but that's the process you're working with them on. When you're doing an investment, you've got to be a lot clearer, right? You've got to look at this with a much tighter lens that says, no, that company's not going to make it. They may be worth giving them TA to get them to the point where they are investable, but a company that's worth giving TA is not necessarily a company that's worth investing in. And it can be a very hard conversation with some of my mentees when they know I'm an investor to say, no, I can't
Yeah.
invest in you. You are not ready. You may never be ready to get investment. I will help you as much as I can, but I can't invest in you until you're investable. I can help you get there.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely agreed. Thank you so much, Mitra, for answering that for us. Joram, I would like to ask the same question to you.
Yeah, I think for us, the big lessons that have even been getting bigger this year is that one, corporate engagement takes a very long time. Just getting to closing the deal, I think for us on average takes 9 months. And that's when you're successful. And so our realization was how undercapacitated we were on the business development side. At some point, we just had one business development manager, but realized that under them, when the projects come in, we need, someone managing the project side. We need the relationship management ongoing. We need people to help with the leads generation and proposal writing and the like. And so started to build our capacity around that so that you can have multiple corporate conversations ongoing. And like I mentioned, I think the projects with each are likely to be different. For some, it might be that they have SME suppliers and they want to build their capacity. For others, is that they have SMEs in their value chain as distributors, agents, or merchants, and they want to run a program to build their capacity on the business side because strengthening their value chain strengthens their overall business model. For others, it may be CSR programs, so for others, it might be that they want a capacity building program for their SMEs specifically. And so just navigating this whole minefield can be quite difficult to keep track of, like you're tracking the different relationships, different conversations, trying to get them going. The larger an organization is, the more bureaucratic they tend to be. So just even getting to a meeting to discuss the next thing, you have a discovery meeting, you discuss an idea or a concept, you send it in. Getting them to the next meeting can take weeks just to discuss the concept paper. And then, by the time you're getting down to contracting, it can take quite a while. So we've just realized that we need to build the capacity of that so that we can have multiple projects running, to remain financially sustainable. Yeah.
And if you could just tell us one very quick lesson that you can give incubators trying out this corporate partnerships.
So I think, building out the mindset to sniff out the opportunities. Once you're working with an organization, I don't know that you should go in with a preset mindset of what you could potentially do with them. I think it's spending a lot of time trying to understand their goals, their strategy, their business model, and then trying to see a framework in terms of how can we then capacitate SMEs within their value chain, within any of these programs. The other complexity is all those value chains I mentioned have a different decision maker. And so there is that complexity of finding out who the right decision maker is and having the right conversation the first time. There's a lot of people in corporate who just enjoy conversations, and so they may not be the right decision maker, but they'll entertain you and they'll keep running you down rabbit holes that are not leading to anything. And so I've found that being very intent on ensuring you have the right decision maker in the conversation and then pushing that down to something that creates value where you can get contracted becomes key. So don't just walk into, just because someone has title head of SME does not mean they are the decision maker for the potential program you're likely to do with that organization.
Right. And thank you so much, Joram, for putting it. And thank you to all the speakers for answering these questions. Now we would like to move to the next round of questions. These are more targeted based on the revenue streams of speakers. So I would again like to start with Vijaya. So Vijaya, research shows that 1/3 of the hybrid incubators, as you had mentioned earlier, uh, they globally employ such models, including consulting services, to their revenue mix, which enhances their financial self-sufficiency as well. So what is your single most repeatable consulting offer in terms of scope, typical duration, as well as the price band that generates a steady revenue for you?
See, the duration, again, I think within the capacity building consulting practice of what we do, um, we have short term to sort of what you call as a medium term. A short term project, a short term engagement is anywhere between 3 to 6 months, right? And a medium term engagement runs for about 18 months. So that's where your price point and sort of what you do. It sort of defines the sort of fee and therefore how much it's going to feed in as part of a proportion of the your revenue stream. But I think just for us, at the early days we were undertaking a lot of the execution of capacity building, which meant that we would undertake. So let's say we had, Joram mentioned about cohort-based models of learning. So we used to run cohort-based programs, right? We'd have a cohort of founders, entrepreneurs for whom we would have like 4 different kind of sessions or 6 sessions or 8 sessions, a lot of which in the early days we were just sort of designing and delivering ourselves. Today, the model has changed where we spend more time on the design and conceptualizing, which actually allows us to charge a premium. And then necessarily, we're not the ones who are delivering all of it. Because I think it's not possible for an organization. Again, that's where the unique identity of what you want to do. You want to be known somebody who has a strong understanding of tech and AI? Are you, or is it around data? Is it around HR? Is it around finance? For us, a lot of our uh, recognition or our reputation now comes because we understand capacity building. So while we don't deliver specific sessions around HR or finance or we take a larger step. It's more meta for us where we're looking at what does capacity building entail. We spend a lot of our revenue now comes a lot more on delivering diagnostic solutions. We design diagnostic tools. We develop methodologies. So I think the scope, therefore, sits sometimes where you're working more as a design and a thought partner and here as well as your design and implementing. So then the price points also very different across the two.
Okay.
I hope I've answered your question. Hopefully.
Yeah. So just a quick follow up. How do you, although you've mentioned it briefly in your response as well, so how do you package it so that repeatedly package it so that it's low cost for you as well?
I think that's a little bit tricky, right? Because you I think operationally you can come up with low cost solutions, or you can design programs when you're delivering them to be low cost, but not in the design of it, right? The design needs to be fresh and unique and tailored for each client and each program that you're doing. It's not a cookie cutter model. The delivery of it can be cookie cutter, where you say that, okay, you know what, we're going to do a hybrid model. We'll have 6 sessions like this. And then based on budgets, we'll have in-person convenings. The world has largely moved to hybrid models and virtual, completely online models, cloud offices. So I think taking that into consideration, the ease of logistics and delivery and therefore rationalization of costs presents that opportunity is presented for you only from an operational lens, not at a design lens.
Okay, yeah, absolutely makes sense. Thank you so much, Vijaya, for answering that question. And my next question is actually for Mitra. So, Mitra, our research shows that while equity participation aligns incubators with long-term startup success, the actual financial returns are delayed, with low liquidity posing sustainability challenges as well. And while revenue-based finance, it can be structured both as debt or equity, and contracts vary from country to country. We would like to understand what payback structure do you use for most frequently, and how does that structure help you manage the timing of your returns?
Ruud, is this where you want to use my slides, or? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I can bring it up. Just give me one quick second. Sorry, Mitra, you can start. I'm just facing a little bit of difficulty.
Okay, so
Let me try.
the challenge with equity, as you say, is liquidity. Right? There are almost zero exits in the impact space. Especially I have yet to find an exit in the impact space that preserved the impact, right? That generated a financial return, but also generated an impact. And that's assuming that we're looking at companies whose purpose is to deliver impact, not that we're just trying to start a whole bunch of small companies. So I think most of us know these problems with the impact equity space. It's kind of a mishmash of the worst of VC and the worst of philanthropy. high ticket sizes, long DD processes, excessive reporting, unreasonable expectations that we're looking at unicorns, hence the image. We're mostly investing in cows that are dressed up to look like unicorns, and unlikely exits. And if you're trying to make, and there's two ways to make money out of investing. You can either, as an incubator, you can either invest your own money if you've got it, which may include getting paid in equity or in whatever the currency is. Or you can invest other people. And the challenge with equity is that if you invest in other people's money, there's often a massive amount of fiduciary responsibility and complications that make it really, really hard to do that on a small scale. Building a fund, if you're not going to build a fund that's got 20, 30 million in it, it's really not worth the cost that you're going to have to go through all the regulatory stuff to get there, especially if there's anything international involved. Next slide, Rod. So I've been interested in, that's it. I've been interested in two kinds of alternatives to that. One is working cap, because a lot of the companies we incubate are actually looking for working cap. They're not looking for equity because they're never going to generate a unicorn return. And so the typical loans I'm seeing are in the region of 50 to 100K, usually with 5 or 10 lenders participating. Interest rates are typically in the 10 to 13% range. The key thing is that they may be able to get loans for that rate locally, but usually not without security, which the companies usually don't have. And there's usually something like a 2% spread between what the lenders get and what the companies pay. And that's where there's also an opportunity for incubators in that they can work with lenders who may be the same people as their mentors, and help facilitate as a syndicate those investments into the companies. It's important as a syndicate because it's not you lending as an incubator and other people lending you the money. It's you facilitating a process where each lender is actually doing their own loan, but on a common set of terms. And there are platforms that do that. Two companies that process so far: Red Hat Impact and Good Karma. Good Karma is based out of Singapore and Indonesia. Red Hat Impact's based out of Australia. And Lend for Good is a platform on which those kind of intermediaries sit, so that it's also a place that other incubators can set themselves up without having to go all the tech and all that side of stuff and make their own loans with their own set of lenders. Do you want to do a third slide? Have I got time for that? Revenue-related debt is slightly different in that it's not structured as straight debt where the company's on the hook for it. It's where there's a very well-defined way that it's paid back based on their growth. And revenue-related debt is actually better. It's something you can do earlier because you can. This is flicking around. This is a slide to stay on, Ruud. Revenue-related debt is something you can work with when there's a period of time before you get to revenue, and you get paid back at a fixed proportion. So as the company grows, they're paying you back more. The key thing is not what the number is. The key thing is when you do revenue-related debt or even working capital debt, you've got to look very hard at their finances, turn them into likely rather than optimistic numbers, and then say, what number can they afford to repay? If the company can afford to repay it, you have a high chance of them not defaulting. If you have too high payments, you're likely to push them into default, which doesn't help anybody. And it would take a lot longer to go into the detail. But one of the key things is that there's a group of us who've been working to try and standardize the legals on this, so we can make it much easier for people to do it without having to reinvent the wheel each time. And that's some of the ones listed on the left.
Right, and thank you so much, Mitra, for your comprehensive answer. I think the slides were also very helpful for the audience. If someone is starting out this for the first time, I think it would be really helpful for that. And last but not the least question, of course, is for Joram. So to you, Joram, while reviewing the literature in the field, we found that corporate partnerships are most prevalent in European contexts, with a paper that found that 57% of the incubator income in their European sample, it came from corporate collaborations. So given our global south context, if one of us had to add corporate partnerships to their revenue mix, we would love to know which single deliverable do corporate partners most readily pay significant fees for, and how do you package that into a saleable product?
Okay. Is it okay if I just share like one screen? I figured it might be
Sure.
helpful
Yeah.
in helping people understand, because somebody asked a question also about the business model. So this is how we broadly look at our revenue streams. So like I mentioned, we have the estate, the experts, we have the space, then we have the institutions and entrepreneur-based revenues. And this is kind of how we are diversified in how we go about developing, prioritizing and developing revenue streams across each. For the corporates, I would say the easiest entry point has been forums and events, because those are kind of lower ticket where they're able to do $5,000 to $10,000 type of things, sponsoring an event or a round table or a forum, but it gets them into the conversation, and you get into their system, their procurement systems and the like, and you begin conversations over longer term programs. I think over time we are seeing supply chain related programs as being more sustainable, because corporates can see those as adding to their bottom line and therefore willing to continue investing in it, in strengthening their supply chains or their procurement chains in terms of like SME suppliers and the like. Some have programs around trying to get more women or more youth into their procurement and the like. And so because these particular revenue streams are aligned to income generation for themselves, they see it as something that's adding direct value to their corporate strategy, and therefore likely to put more funds into that kind of engagement. And those also tend to be longer term because of the numbers that you can do year in, year out, and can morph into higher levels of how you can support the small businesses or SMEs in their value chains over time. For us, there is the additional benefit of those particular SMEs, because they know it's us doing it as a brand, can then come and become clients of our other regular programs, trainings, and consultings to keep upskilling over time. And so it has a spillover effect in just helping build a brand towards the direct entrepreneurs themselves as well. Yeah.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much, Joram, for sharing this with us. And I would actually like to end this panel discussion today with one takeaway or one tip that all our speakers could give to someone setting out to employ a new revenue stream in their business model. So what is that one tip, one quick tip that you would give them? Vijaya, please go ahead first.
I think do your homework first. We believe that there is a need. Whether that need will translate into revenue for us needs to be determined.
Right. Thank you so much, Vijaya. And I think that's very helpful as well. Mitra, we would also like to hear what you have to say.
So related to what I was just saying, I would say explore the potential source of revenue that comes from meeting the needs of your mentors. That your mentors may actually be potential investors in your companies, and you may be able to turn that into a revenue stream if you're facilitating it.
Great.
And especially since you as an incubator are bringing the expertise of knowing those companies really, really well.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Mitra. And Joram, lastly,
Yeah.
Joram, but not the least, of course.
So for me, it's always a question of what is value to the potential client, whether they're a corporate entrepreneur or somebody that you're dealing with. They always have a perception of what constitutes value for themselves. There's other things like protecting their jobs, working with a credible brand, making sure they won't lose their job if they contract you, and the like, which are things you can address around building your credibility to work with them. But at the end of the day, we've realized that everyone spends on something. There are always budgets being allocated to spend on something, even if it's the entrepreneur, but they'll only spend on what they perceive as value for themselves. And so if you focus your attention on uncovering what that value is, sometimes it's so much harder than said in terms of getting behind the emotional reasons of why they would invest in one thing versus the other. But spending time building relationships to uncover what that value is so that you can align your value proposition to what the value is, rather than always coming with a predetermined notion of what program you're going to sell to them and assuming that it is value for that particular organization. I would say spend a lot of time understanding what is value for them, then align your capabilities to that value that you can deliver.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joram, for your response. I think all the tips have been very useful, and I hope they will act as key takeaways for our audience as well. So I think we would like to now open the floor to questions for our audience.
Great. Thanks so much, and thank you, speakers, for a wonderful discussion. I think I really learned a lot, and it's been very inspiring to hear, the kind of research and experiences that we've had within the Global South in terms of alternative revenue streams and financial sustainability also. So now we'd like to hear from anybody who may have a question for our speakers or also wants to share any experiences that might have aligned with Mitra, with Vijaya, with Joram, right? Yeah, feel free to unmute or chat it on our chat box.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Marushka. Yes,
Hi,
please go ahead.
Actually not a question, but I just want to say that I really appreciate this session, particularly having three different backgrounds kind of explain the different options for us to diversify is really was really eye-opening for me. I guess the value that I do find within this conversation is also having or not coming with a preconceived notion of, okay, I have a set template, I have a set plan of what I can throw to my clients or potential clients, right? So like the importance of it also being catered and at least tailored fit for your clients is very important. And also aligning as what was said earlier, like aligning the capabilities with what you can deliver really gives like a very big value add to what we can offer, also our own value proposition as Will Grow Philippines. So thank you for this session. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Marushka. And thanks for sharing your insights. Really appreciate it. I'm glad that you really enjoyed the session. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share any insights or questions on their end?
The chat box, Rod, I did notice that somebody had placed a question about not fully understanding who the client is. I think for social
Right.
lens, I would just say that our clients are at both ends of the spectrum, right? So on one end, you have grant makers, capital providers. They could be impact investors, incubators, corporate CSRs, foundations. And on the other end, we also work, our client pool also includes the change makers who are both social enterprises and traditionally registered nonprofit organizations who may choose to avail our services. Just clarifying that.
Thanks, Vijaya. And yes, I see it on the comments. Thanks, Paul, for asking this. So maybe we can go through each one as well, just to maybe give a little bit of context. So we heard Vijaya and their client pool for Social Lens. Maybe we can hear from Mitra as well
Yeah,
in terms
sure.
of who your customer is. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, my customers are generally early stage impact innovators. So companies that are using some kind of technology, not usually just tech, so hard tech, to meet an impact issue. And what I do for them is most of the time is help them turn that idea, that concept into a business. Help them work through all the challenges, the TA process, but with a very strong background in understanding technology, which obviously a general purpose incubator doesn't have. And that could involve all the stuff that any incubator does. It could involve helping them with their business plans. It could involve helping them with their financials. Sometimes I'm like, one of my mentees is their major project now, and their funding is coming through an introduction I made them. It was a fairly random introduction that was just like, oh, I know this person, that person can help you. It's a thing stuff that incubators do, but it's with a focus on technology. And on the investment side, my customers are usually coming through one or other of the syndicates that I invest through. So they're all impact, but they're much more diverse.
Thanks, Mitra. Dara?
Yeah, so I think my slide kind of showed the different categories. So there's the entrepreneurs themselves who we segment and have specific programs. If they're startups, they'll have different set of programs from if they're a bit further along, like growing businesses. And we will also discriminate the pricing as such, like maybe have lower pricing for bootstrapped startups, higher pricing for capitalized startups that have raised money. And then as we have growth businesses and larger businesses, those can even go into direct consulting, where they are able to pay consulting fees for whatever services they're able to consume from us in our growth journey. The service providers also have needs because they are entrepreneurs themselves running, legal, HR, accounting firms, which are used by our entrepreneurs. And so we also have programs to capacitate them, and we create value around that, and we also monetize that. So they're able to pay us for space or for skilling programs or for the value that we create around them, getting more clients that funnel in through our programs, or the entrepreneurs who come to us directly. And then there's the corporates, and we particularly like to target corporates that have large numbers of small businesses or SMEs in their value chains. So financial industry, telco, FMCG tend to be the kind of businesses that we engage here in Kenya.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing. Maybe while we wait, if somebody else wants to ask a question, again, feel free to unmute. If you have any questions, or raise your hand. But maybe while we have that, I'm quite curious about each of these revenue streams. Also, him actually. So, if I could have a little bit of time with each of them to ask. So, with Vijaya, for example, Vijaya, how do you balance your mission as Social Lens, right? You are an impact organization with, for example, maybe getting clients who might not be quite as aligned with your mission. Do you immediately reject them, or how do you go through this process?
Thank you for it. It's a very interesting question, Rod. So I think I don't know if this is something that resonates with a lot of organizations in the early years, right? I don't think we had the luxury of looking at what we saw as a mission drift. I don't think it ever came to a mission drift. It was all about doing whatever work came our way, because you're only going to build the experience from a body of work. So at that point, as long as it sat under the larger construct of working for the social impact sector, one thing we completely sort of stepped back from was the kind of fee that we were going to get paid. Okay. Over the years, it does become very hard to kind of look at what is it that you do which defines impact. Because I think that we live in a very convergent world. It's not like profit versus non-profit. It's really about impact. And so to understand for oneself what constitutes working with a potential organization which is delivering impact is the first lens that we need to wear, and we do wear, before we say that, this is sort of sitting with what we want to do. I also believe organizations, every decade or so need to sort of revisit their sort of mission and purpose, because market conditions do keep changing. Are we, what we're doing, still relevant? What are the changes that we need to make? That's where I would place it.
Awesome. Thanks, Vijay. A lot of things to consider, right? I mean, I guess it's not a simple yes or no. There's always things to consider when it comes to the context of entertaining a certain client.
Yes.
yeah, making it work for your organization. So thank you. Thanks, Jaya. For Mitra, my what I'm curious about is how receptive usually are the the entrepreneurs that you work with in terms of these alternatives to debt kind of structures? Like, do they need a lot of education to learn about it, or in terms of the reception so far, how is it? And is there more openness now to something like this for them, and also for maybe the other stakeholders like the investors as well, and for incubators maybe? Yeah.
It's a good question, because for the entrepreneurs, they've often been sold the idea that equity is the only way to build a company, right? And so a lot of them have to be disillusioned of the fact that they're actually going to get equity, because they don't fit the mold of what an equity investor is looking for. But nobody tells them that because they're interested in offering them services. So, you look at the people that go into the big incubator programs, a lot of them, they're never going to get it. They're never going to get equity investment. Um, so that can be challenging. But then sooner or later, they realize that they're having a lot of great conversations because everyone wants to talk to them because they love what they're doing, but they don't write checks. And sooner or later, then they start looking at, well, actually, maybe I don't have to give away half my company in order to get equity, and then try and meet the promises that I know I can't meet. And then they're open to other things, and they realize, well, actually, I want to buy this stuff, I want to do something with it, and I want to sell it. And I'm going to make 20% or 50% on doing that, so I can pay 5% interest, which is 10% over 6 months, and that's very comfortable for them. So why do they need to go and get equity if they just need to run a business? But the problem is that they can't get the working cap because they don't have the track record. Now, as a venture builder or as an incubator, you have a really good idea of, can that company actually do what they say they're going to do, way better than any bank does. Right? The bank doesn't trust them because they don't have 3 years track record and a whole bunch of accounts. But I look at the company and I go, well, they've run this with 20 cows. Now they want to run it with 100 cows. I like the team. The team is super smart. They haven't got a track record, but they're super smart. They've done this once. Yes, of course I'm going to go invest in them.
Right.
But why
There's
wouldn't I? It's a good financial return.
Right. And the advantage really is that you have a closer relationship with these entrepreneurs. So you do know the kind
Exactly.
of potential that they have. So then
Yeah.
it's really about them understanding these alternatives to equity, these kinds of debts. Then it
Yes.
works out for both parties. It's a win-win.
Yeah. And look, we just went through this with one of my mentees, together with Red Hat Impact and Led for Good, and we just reworked their financials around debt. It made so much more sense than around equity. Around debt, they could actually run the program, scale it up. It's a 4-month program, so they could run their program every 4 months, scale it up each time. Having done it the first time, they would then get, it's way easier to justify putting more working cap in. Each time the working cap is being paid, the interest can be covered from the program. Their finances make much more sense, and because I'm helping on the mentoring side, I can work the finances with them.
Great. Really quickly, I think Mitra, maybe I can give you a minute so that I can ask Jara my question.
Sorry.
But Paul is asking, at 2% spread and $100K ticket sizes, does this become financially sustainable at a portfolio level?
Basically, yes. I mean, that's the point. It's not. So there's two different people it has to be sustainable for. It has to be sustainable for the investor who's getting 8% compared to whatever they would get elsewhere, and it's basically wearing the loss on if you make 5 investments and one of them goes south, you've lost money. If it's all relative, right, to what success rate. At the portfolio level, yes, that's the challenge. You need to be doing 10, 20, 30 loans at 100K to make enough to be worth the effort you're putting into it. But the effort doesn't necessarily have to be that huge if all you're doing is matching mentors you've already got with investors. And it might not be the mentor that was on that company. It might be, we've had 10 companies in our cohort, 3 of them are already good prospects for investment. Now we offer that out to all the mentors. with their actual mentor being able to vouch for them and showing they're vouching for them by putting their own money in. And that's a way that you can make a revenue stream. It doesn't have to be your only revenue stream. It doesn't have to cost you that much.
Thanks, Mitra. Thank you so much. And thanks, Paul, for the question. Now, Joram, for you, I think a bit of a challenge because there's two questions really in what I'm curious about, since corporate partnerships have really been coming up, especially in the network, as like a new opportunity for a lot more incubators to get into. So I guess this is something that you touched on, but I really want to hear about how do you maintain relationships knowing that, you know, these point of contacts can change over time. And then the second one really is kind of similar to Vijaya around how do you still keep it relevant to the entrepreneurs, even though you're doing corporate brand work, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say one, avoid having just a single point of contact within one corporate. Try and build relationships with multiple people. People move around a lot. They get jobs in other companies and leave, or they get promoted into a different position. And so you have somebody new you're dealing with. And so do you have that champion in the organization or set of champions who can always help you triangulate who to deal with to keep the conversations going? To also try and be a bit more invested. It means attending their events. They invite you to their events. They invite you into different things, and all those become touch points to keep the relationship going and exploring other things when you bump into each other or introduce new ideas, or they come up with new ideas that have come up in their strategies to be able to keep that going. So bit of a tight balancing act, but I think quite possible to do if you're focused on resourcing to keep that as a revenue stream that's flowing day in and day out. I've forgotten the second part of your question. Sorry.
No worries. The other part was how do you balance like corporate brand work, right? Because you're doing this with
Okay,
brands,
yeah.
but still it being beneficial to the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So in many cases, you'll find that programs have impact metrics that they've defined. There's a corporate entity that has their ESG reporting or CSR reporting to do. So sometimes there's additional impact metrics that they embed into the program. But I think, as Vijaya said, one key thing we see for ourselves as being like a global South company for the work we do in Africa is just getting small businesses to grow and provide jobs is already huge impact. And that's one key metric that we're always looking at. Are we helping people move along, develop more quality jobs, build more sustainable businesses that also work for the entrepreneur, where they're actually generating an income that's worthwhile in the businesses that they are running. But like I said, each program will have its metrics that we keep embedding in. But at the end of the day, businesses have to be well run. Even impact businesses need good financials, good legal, and all sorts of things to keep it running sustainably over the long term. So kind of getting people to stop seeing the hardcore business stuff as stuff that shouldn't be focused on. It can be embedded into actually powering the impact to happen at scale.
And that's a really good point, right? And that really takes also getting to be really aware of what your business provides so that then it aligns with whatever that organization also is in terms of their brand. Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks, Joram. And I'd just like to thank Vijaya. I know she had to leave because she has a client meeting and we're running a little bit over time, but I wanted to give another thank you to our speakers and Himakshi for very well excellently moderating our discussion. I wanted to give her back the floor just to take us through a survey that we'd like everybody here to answer. And while she talks about that, I will just pull up our feedback form because we'd really love to get your feedback on how today's convening went. All right, Himakshi, please take it over.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you so much to all the speakers as well. I would like to tell everyone in the audience that we are conducting a primary research on the topic of financial sustainability, and more specifically about diversifying, how diversification of revenue streams leads to financial sustainability of impact incubators. And I think this would be a very important exercise and timely as well. And we would like for impact incubators and accelerators to contribute to this primary research by filling in this pre-survey on the screen right now. And incentives for this particular research have also been mentioned here. The participating organizations are going to be receiving a benchmarking scorecard, which will be customized to their organization, showing how their particular organization fares in terms of their peers. Um, they will gain global visibility in terms of they will have, so the top 10 organizations that are scored in this primary research, they are going to be featured in the best practices section in the final research report. And these participating organizations will be contributing to supporting the ecosystem in creating policy and eventually advocating for change that we have been looking to see. So I think all of the organizations present here, I would request for all of you to contribute in this research, in this very important effort that Pollinate Impact is taking. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Rod.
Thank you so much, Himakshi, and thanks for sharing. We hope that you all fill out the pre-survey, and then I know Himakshi's going to reach out to you once you do that. I've sent the link on the chat as well for you to get access to it. And we will send it over through our thank yous as well once the session is over. I just like to, again, thank Joram, Mitra, Vijaya for coming here today and sharing with us your experiences. This was really great. I just like to echo what Marushka said. This is really great insights to get in terms of thinking about organizations and their own revenue streams and financial sustainability. And of course, Himakshi for sharing tidbits of research that we've seen so far, and you could contribute to into creating this research by joining our free survey and then the research as well. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, for the participants as well, for listening and staying for the entire time. We hope you've learned something new. We'd be happy to hear what you've learned through the feedback form and or our email coming up soon. And we hope to see you in our November sessions next month. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your week.